Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dr. MC's Self-Care Cabaret podcast. I'm Teresa Melito-Conners, a doctoral level educational administrator and mental health practitioner focused on helping you, our world's helpers. Every day, we have a choice to prioritize our well-being, to incorporate reflection, recovery, renewal, and resilience strategies into our lives. However, those of us who step up and serve our communities in healthcare, education, nonprofit spaces, and more can struggle with putting ourselves first. I've seen it firsthand. It's a challenge. Enter Dr. MC's Self-Care Cabaret podcast. Here, we have real, intimate conversations with leading experts passionate about accessible, sustainable self-care in its 10 domains. And it's all about the hard work we can take on together to find our spotlight. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to discuss the importance of the environmental domain of self-care. And this is also related to the topic we're going to discuss with our special guest today. But the environmental domain is very important, and it's important to remember that if your space, and I'm talking about any spaces that you inhabit, so your home, your office, your classroom, wherever you work, even your car, if it is cluttered and disorganized, that is going to be really difficult for you to relax. It becomes an energy drain for us when our spaces are cluttered and disorganized. It actually signals to your brain that there is work to be done, which is why it makes it so difficult to relax. Have you ever noticed after you've maybe done a little decluttering or organized the space or even donated some belongings that you just feel so good and refreshed and even maybe a little lighter? That's because those things and that chaos in your environment was draining your energy. So this is really important. Also, when we think about the environmental domain, we want to consider our schedules and make sure we're maintaining a manageable schedule. We're not taking on too many requests or demands. And if we are, we're balancing the demands of others with what is important to us. And additionally, we just want to do things that make our everyday living and work environment more pleasant and enjoyable. So whatever that means for you. For me, I love to be surrounded by inspirational quotes and color and photos of my loved ones and different things that bring me joy. So if you've ever been in an office space that I have, or any other space, or been in a space with me, you've probably noticed that. I used to have a disco ball hanging in my last office. I don't currently have one, but I don't know, maybe I can get that back. Anyway, really, really important to consider. So maybe start small and decide if there's an area, maybe a junk drawer or a bookshelf or a closet that you can start to declutter and get organized and see how it makes you feel and see how that impacts your energy. And today, we're going to chat with Kerry Miller. Kerry is a Feng Shui and energy clearing practitioner and author of the book, Feel Better, Flows Better, Feng Shui for Inspired Living. This is perfect topic for us today. She is passionate about showing heart-centered entrepreneurs how to arrange their surroundings in a way that supports their success and prosperity and creates ease in their business and their life. Kerry offers sessions on-site and virtually. I am delighted to chat with her today, and without further delay, here is our conversation. Great. We're up and running. Thank you, Kerry, so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Thanks. So let's dive right in. How do you like to practice self-care?
I honestly would say that I'm not the best at self-care in general. Like, I'm not really good at going for that extra massage or for making sure that I eat healthy every single day. But one of the things that I've really mastered in the last couple of years is about creating space in my calendar. And that looks like I know that the work that I do is really a lot of energy output. And I was realizing that I was getting very drained by it. And so I started really like cushioning what I was doing with a lot of downtime and just clearing up my calendar for that. And it has made a huge difference to allow myself to just have the time off afterwards to regroup my own energy and show up better for my family and for my clients because of that. So that's really my own self-care technique, and the one good thing that I do for myself all the time.
I love that. I feel like a lot of people need to create some space in their calendars. We tend to be overly scheduled, overcommitted, and we just run blindly from like one thing to the next and don't take that moment to rest and recharge. So that is a hugely valuable self-care practice. Self-care really, and it's also, you did mention not eating healthy every day and maybe not getting massages. Like that's okay. That's part of life, right? Like we're not always every day isn't going to be perfect. So we strive to practice self-compassion for ourselves also when we think about self-care.
Yes, I think that's so important. Yeah. I'm more compassionate with myself now than I used to be. So
that
it's a good
happens
lesson.
too. Yeah, no, we have to treat ourselves like we treat our loved ones and our friends. Like we can't, sometimes we beat ourselves up. We say things about ourselves that we would never say or do to someone else, but yet we do that to ourselves.
So true. Yep.
All right, so we're really here to talk about Feng Shui, which I'm so excited about. So in case any listeners are unfamiliar, can you give us kind of a little gist or a little brief intro of what exactly it is?
Yeah, so Feng Shui is an ancient Chinese practice. It's been practiced for really thousands of years in the East. And it's the study of looking at unseen energies in a space or a building and how that moves through the space and how it affects the occupants and how the occupants feel. So these energies are moving around. They're very subtle, but they are influencing our mood, our energy level, how confident we feel, and even really how much money we make, because they're just, affecting us. And it's also the practice of adjusting the space in a positive way so that that energy is more beneficial for us, which is what I love to do. I really love to help people with that process of figuring out what's throwing them off and creating a space that feels better and flows better to be in.
Yeah. I mean, everything is energy, right? Everything
Yes.
we give off we're energy, like everything is energy. And I think, one of the 10 domains of self-care is the environmental domain. And that's so important. And I think it's somewhat neglected. And I'm always saying to folks, have you ever walked into a space and just felt like the vibe was off?
Yep.
And people are like, oh yeah, like people can generally relate to that statement. I'm like, yeah. That means that space needs some work on its environmental domain, or you need, if your house is chaotic and cluttered and all that, like that wears on your energy. That's an energy drain for you.
Definitely. Yeah, there's so many things that can pull at your own energy. And so when we're feeling depleted or distracted, sometimes it's not us, it's our body reacting to the stuff around us.
Yeah. So how could someone get started? Like, what if someone's like, oh, I think my space is a little, I don't know, maybe not set up for my success. How could someone get started?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, thinking about your space as an extension of you. It's really an energetic extension of you. It's a reflection of what's going on for you inside. And so if you start to think about your space as that, and maybe just loving your space a little bit more, the more that you put into your surroundings, the more they give back to you. And so instead of looking around your house and thinking that it's a chore to take care of it, think of it as a loving way of self-caring for yourself, because the more you care for your house, the more it's going to love you back and make life easier for you. So, just really simple things to do would be to just look around and notice what you don't need anymore or is in your way, and do some decluttering. Get rid of those things that are giving off that vibe that maybe distracts you or weighs you down. Just finally get them out of the way. And even just picking a room, like pick one room at a time and just give it a little bit of love, a little bit of appreciation, and raise the vibe of that space. Because when the energy of the space around you is high vibe, it helps to nourish your energy and be less depleting.
Yeah. I love that. And what's a way someone could maybe raise the vibration in a space? Like, what do you recommend for that?
Yeah, I think the quickest and easiest way to do it, honestly, is to open the front door and open the doors and windows for a little while. And I know here in the Northeast, we're in the winter right now, but even if you do it for like 5 or 10 minutes, just open up the space and let some fresh air come through. That's fresh energy coming in. It's clearing out some of the old stagnant energy, and it's really waking up the space very instantly. And if you really feel resistant to opening the windows when it's cold out, take a few minutes to just flick on all the lights in the room. And if you have ceiling fans, turn those on for a minute. And you could even go through the space and just kind of snap a dish towel or clap your hands and just get the energy moving a little bit. You're shaking up all the energy that's in the space that might have settled down, that might have gotten a little bit stuck or stagnant, or that might be residual energy from, if you were sick for a little bit of time and it's kind of heavier, thicker, and it's not serving you as much anymore. And so circulating that energy needs to flow. So just getting it flowing is a really easy way to start with that practice.
Excellent. I definitely have heard about like opening the doors and the windows, or even playing like, high vibrational music on like Pandora or YouTube or something. But I never really thought about just you physically moving the energy by either, snapping your hands, clapping, or the dish towel, or just kind of making movement in the space to shift the energy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even better if you can like turn on some music and dance around for a few minutes, because that will totally change the vibration of the space. What we're doing is changing the frequency of the space, raising it up. So your body ends up responding to that, and you get that little burst of energy too.
Love that. Throwing on music and dancing around is one of my favorite things to do. My 5-minute dance party is absolutely one of my main self-care practices. Yep. Awesome. So what is the connection between like setting goals and Feng Shui? Like, how does that exactly work?
Yeah, I actually think that Feng Shui is a really great tool to begin with to help you set goals, because in Feng Shui, they divide life into 9 different life areas. So you're taking your big picture life and breaking it down into, what do you want for your wealth and prosperity? What do you want for your health? What do you want for partnership? What do you want for work? So it really, as a tool, it already gives you those 9 categories to look at that make it easier to set a goal. And so if you can get clear on what you want in each of those 9 life areas, then you can kind of look around your space and think, is my space sending the same message? Like, say, I want to be rich and prosperous. Is your space saying that you feel rich and prosperous, or is it saying that you have some lack or some fears around money? There's really some hidden secret messages in there. And so you can start to see ways that maybe you're thinking you want something, but in your space, you're actually sending a completely different message, making it hard for the universe to respond to you. And ultimately, you can start to look at making your home a 3-dimensional vision board for that life that you want to create. So
we love vision boards here. You can start to really
change it up. Yeah. So, and I have a 2-dimensional vision board for sure every year, but then I bring that into my space and make sure that, that it's really reflecting the things that I'm calling in for the different parts of my life as well.
Very cool. Now, does that get into, and I may mispronounce this, is it called a Bagua map? The mapping? Yes. So did I say that right?
You did, yep. So the Bagua map it's sort of, I think of it like a treasure map that you can use and lay it over the layout of your home. And it tells you where there are different energy centers in your home that are related to each one of those 9 life areas. So you can get really deliberate. If I really am focused on this goal of financial freedom this year, what part of your house to go to give lots of love to, because, setting intentions and paying attention to that part of your house will energetically be calling more energy into that part of your life. So it becomes this really powerful tool that you can use in being purposeful and deliberate with your surroundings.
Yeah, it's fascinating, really. And I have different things set up. And as I mentioned, my mom has practiced Feng Shui a little bit here and there, dabbled in it and how she set up her house and different things she's told me to do. And I do know some elements of it. And I do have things positioned around my house specifically for this purpose, things in the doorway and what different things hanging as a result. But it's really fascinating. I'd love to kind of look at it again now that we're a little more settled in our home. home to kind of revisit that and kind of take a look, or kind of look at my current goals, my own vision board, and kind of see what can be adjusted, because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, and I really think that, as your goals change over time, and if your house isn't also evolving, it can start to work against you in being able to attain those goals. So, if you're always checking in with your goals and resetting those and up leveling, it's also really good to revisit your house and any feng shui cures you have in place, and make sure that it's all still supporting where you're going now, because we're always evolving as people. So our space should evolve too, to support us.
Yeah, very cool. Did you hear the news about our exciting new offering from the Self-Care Cabaret? We're calling it Talkback. If you're familiar with the theater space, you may have participated in a talkback before. After a performance, the cast and crew will come back on stage to chat with the audience and answer questions. Think of it as a casual, guided discussion. Inspired by this and by popular interest, we've come up with a talkback for the Self-Care Cabaret podcast. Groups will listen to a podcast episode or two of their choosing, then I'll come and lead your discussion either in person or virtually of those episodes, expanding on the big ideas. It's a great option for groups looking for short, impactful professional development, or smaller teams looking to get an introduction to self-care and well-being. We have done a few of these so far, and let me say, they have been so much fun. So if you're interested in bringing a talkback to your group or organization, email podcast@drmcselfcare.com. And now, on with the show. So what about, is there like some of this might, feel a little overwhelming to our listeners, thinking like, oh my God, this map and what do I do? So they're like just a couple of things, like you mentioned, a little bit, maybe how to get started. But when thinking about clearing energy and stuff like that, anything else that like easy ways for folks to kind of get started, or maybe like your 2 or 3 easy things that you like to tell people to do?
Definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, it really is about just sort of playing with it. And I think if you were going to get started, one of the main areas of the house that's really important to pay attention to is the front door, the front entrance to the house. That's the one that's the architectural front door. Even if you don't use that door, paying attention to that location in the house is really important, because energetically, that's where all the energy is coming into the house, and it affects the energy of the whole house. So if you were to focus on one thing, if you went out in front of your house and just took a look at your front door, cleaned up any clutter that's out there, maybe sweep the front walkway, make sure that your house numbers are really clear, make sure the lights are working, the doorbell works, and even highlight the door with some nice planters or a wreath or a welcome mat, because energy flows where attention goes. So if you can make your front door really beautiful and attractive, you'll be calling not only more energy in your direction, but you'll be raising the vibration of the energy as it passes into your home. So that's a great place to start. That one simple thing. A lot of times people will do that tip, and then they'll call me and say, I got an unexpected client after that, or, like energy really started moving. So that's a great place to start. And then the other areas that I would focus would be the places where you spend the most time. So for me, I focus a lot on my office, because I'm in there quite a bit, and my bedroom, because I'm sleeping in there, a third of my life. And really, you're in a vulnerable energetic state when you're in the bedroom. So making sure those spaces are decluttered, and really just feeling good energy, feeling like your bedroom supports resting and, recuperating and connecting with your partner, and it's quiet and a place where you can escape from the rest of the crazy world, so that you can come back out of it and be rested. And also focusing on your office, maybe it needs to be a little bit more of an active place that keeps you focused and energized.
Yeah, I love that. Does color at all play into feng shui?
It does. So there are, we look at 5 different elements in feng shui. So there's wood, water, earth, metal, and fire. And colors usually fall into one of those elemental categories. So, they can represent some of the personality that the element might have, but also in general, like, yellow is typically has a personality that's like more of a happier, uplifting color,
Sure.
whereas blue is like a calming color. So you can really use color to shift the vibration of your space and, help influence the way people in the space feel. So that's a really powerful change that you can make just by changing out a few throw pillows or putting a new coat of paint on the wall. It makes a big energetic shift in the space.
Yeah. And are there things that people should avoid? Like, is there something, like when we think about setting up our spaces, is there things that tend to give off like maybe negative energy or things to avoid?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that avoiding as much clutter as possible, like if you can take a look and, eliminate things that you don't need or aren't helpful to you anymore, that's very powerful because clutter, especially physical clutter, as it builds up, it will slow the energy down and it can, kind of anchor you to not be able to move forward. So clutter is definitely one thing. A lot of times things like sharp objects, it's recommended that those are kind of sending pointing energy at you, harsh energy at you. So if you can put your kitchen knives in a drawer or someplace where they're not so obvious, don't leave scissors hanging around. Some of it's like obvious safety stuff, but energetically it really has this hidden message that's almost like keeping your subconscious on alert. And so if we can calm down some of those things that activate the energy in a way that's kind of unsettling to the body, it really can calm the space down. So sharp things or anything in your space that just reminds you of, sad stories or grief or negativity. If you can let
Sure.
those things go, it'll lift the energy of the space up quite a bit.
Yeah. I seem to recall something about mirrors. I might be confusing that with something else. Is there like a thing about mirrors in feng shui?
Yeah, so mirrors are really powerful in feng shui. They can be used to double the energy of whatever they're reflecting. So, and they can also be used to reflect energy away. So, placement of the mirrors is really important. You don't want to reflect the energy back out of your house by having a mirror too close to your front door. You don't want to reflect negative things. So, if your mirror is reflecting, an electrical box or something like that, that is, not something that's very positive, it can magnify the negative aspect of it. So really, when you're placing a mirror, if you place it, making sure that it's reflecting something that you want more of in your life. So a lot of times I'll talk to, I have a lot of entrepreneur clients, and I'll talk to them about mirrors that are reflecting their workspace, and that's doubling their workload, energetically doubling their workload, or energetically doubling the overwhelm that they feel. So sometimes we actually decide to move those mirrors or quiet them down in some way so that they're not magnifying the negative aspect of something.
Yeah, I remember there being something about mirrors and something even that like having in the bedroom, mirrors in the bedroom specifically, that
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
like when you get up in the morning, like that a mirror isn't like the right there in front of you.
Yeah, they don't recommend mirrors reflecting the bed when you're sleeping. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of it is superstition, kind of thinking that, while you're sleeping, maybe you astral travel or you dream and you don't want to startle yourself. But energetically, they can bounce the energy around the room as well. So they kind of almost activate the room. And a bedroom is a room that we want to keep as quiet as possible so that you can really get a good rest. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's a
Cool.
big one. Definitely taking them out. And I've, with kids, I've often suggested covering the mirror in the bedroom if they have one to see if it helps them sleep better, or just sometimes if they have behavioral issues, it can really calm them down a little bit just to cover it at night.
Oh,
And then they
wow.
can use it during the day.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And do you when we talked about like energy clearing, do you use a smudging technique ever or burning sage or anything like
I
that?
do. I do use, I burn different herbs. Sometimes it's sage, sometimes it's other herbs as part of my energy clearing practice. I use bells, I use salt, I use some charged water. So I use quite a few different layers to clear the energy. I think people can do it on their own using anything that feels really energizing and uplifting. But there are so many cultures that use that, the bundle of burning herbs to clear negative energies or residual energies. And so I just really feel that that's a powerful process in helping to just take away what you don't want in the space anymore.
Yeah. Very cool. And you have a book, right?
I do.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yep. My book is called Feels Better, Flows Better, Feng Shui for Inspired Living. And it's really, I wrote that book to myself, like to who I was when I was just learning Feng Shui and starting out with Feng Shui. And it covers, the basics of Feng Shui. So it's a good starter book. It's a good coffee table book for sure. I have a lot of people that reference back and forth to it often. But it talks about the Bagua map. It talks about the 5 elements. It talks about clutter and things that lower the energy of the space. And even talks about some of the hidden meanings of your house and the different rooms, which once you start to notice that about your house, it helps you love it a little bit more because you see how your home is reflecting parts of you. So yeah, that's my book. I'm pretty proud of it. It's available on Amazon.
Awesome. We'll make sure that's linked in the episode notes for folks. Yeah, I was looking that up myself because now I'm like, I want to revisit all of this again.
Yep.
So this was completely self-serving having you on tonight, Carrie. This podcast was for me. No, just kidding. I think our listeners will find it fascinating and really interesting also, which is so cool.
Yeah,
so
I love this topic.
What type of services do you offer? So how could folks, what would you do for someone who was interested in maybe having you help them with this?
Yeah. So I offer Feng Shui packages, both on-site and virtually. So if you're local to my area, I can come to your home, do a tour there. And then I work with people over a period of time to mentor with them as they're making the suggested changes. So I have different levels of packages, and we can do it virtually too. So I work with a lot of clients that are international, and Zoom and all these other amazing technologies allow us to really look at the space and see what's going on in the space and also talk it through so we know that we're making the right changes as we go. So really virtual and on-site Feng Shui consultations are my most prominent offers.
That's awesome. And where could folks find you? Where can they look you up?
Yeah, my website is carriemillerfengshui.com. I'm also on Instagram at Carrie Miller Feng Shui, and on Facebook you can find me at Feng Shui Pathways. So lots of all the social media places.
Yeah, we're on all the places. Awesome.
Yes.
I'll make sure that's all linked too in the episode notes for folks so they can just click and find you. And where are you located? I know you're in Massachusetts, but
I'm in Massachusetts. Yeah, Metro West Holliston area. So I'm most of Massachusetts I travel to. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for me to book further ones out, but yeah, I love what I do. So
cool.
Call me.
That's amazing. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight.
Carrie gave us so many wonderful ideas and tips to consider. I personally think Feng Shui is very cool. Carrie's conversation re-inspired me to take a look at my home from this perspective. I can admit that I definitely struggle with keeping things organized and decluttered. I have a lot of interests and stuff, and although I've gotten better of letting things go, this is still an area of growth for me. And no, I do not recommend the KonMari method. Even Marie Kondo recently said she's fallen off her own bandwagon. I personally found her method way too overwhelming and not realistic at all. The basic principle of her work, though, is to get rid of things that do not spark joy. So let's say you're holding on to some pants from high school that you're longing to fit into again. They are likely not sparking joy. Time to be like Elsa and let it go. Donate, sell, give to someone else, throw it away if there's no further use for the item. However, so many things can really have another life and be repurposed and upcycled, so I would caution you on throwing things away, as you may be surprised by what they can become. I also, in thinking about Feng Shui in my own home, really wanted to dig a little deeper into the whole concept of the Bagua map and the 9 areas. As Carrie mentioned, the front door is very important. Another key aspect of your house is kind of the center of your house. That is considered to be kind of the main health hub for your house. Pretty cool. And I was actually struck in looking at the Bagua map and considering the layout of my own home by just how intuitively our home aligns with the map, even in the color choices and the layouts of the room. For example, the love and marriage section of our house, or in Feng Shui, the southwestern section of your home, is where my husband and I tend to spend a lot of time. I thought that was pretty cool. And my office self-care space is the northeast corner or section of the house, which is thought to be an area for spiritual growth. Again, I'm constantly in this space, working on my own spiritual journey. It's where I podcast from. It's where I present from. It's where I try to practice a lot of self-care and my own self-care practices. So I thought that was kind of neat that it aligns perfectly with the Bagua map. I hope to dive into this a little bit deeper and maybe look at some ways we can rearrange things accordingly. I also read that live plants can really help with the energy, and my house is loaded with plants. Love them. My conversation with Carrie and some of my exploration into my own Feng Shui and Bagua map also reminded me of some of Cheryl Richardson's tips on how to create a soul-loving space, which may give you maybe some more starting points for where you can begin in considering how to adjust your own living spaces. So this actually comes from Cheryl's book, The Art of Extreme Self-Care. I talk about this book a lot as it's one of the my go-to resources for sure about self-care. So Cheryl talks about the impact of our surroundings and how creating a space that is soul-loving and nurturing can really have some great health benefits. So beyond just decluttering and organizing your space, we really want to think about how it fuels our soul. Pretty cool, right? We talked a little in the intro also about the importance of your environment and making sure that it's not confusing to your brain and that you can actually relax and unplug. So your space says a lot about you. So maybe if you're listening to this and you're at home, or maybe this is something for you to do later, take a look around and consider the following. What do these surroundings say about you? How do they reflect the essence of who you are? If this space were to tell a story about your life, what story would it tell? How does the space make you feel? What have you been tolerating for far too long? What areas make you feel good? What areas make you feel bad? And why might that be? And if you could sweep the entire room into the trash and start over again, would you do that? It'd be a great opportunity to journal a bit later and consider those questions. And I invite you to start small. Please don't, think you have to rearrange the whole house. Maybe pick one room, maybe your office or your bedroom or your living room or even your classroom. Pick one space and see if you can get in touch with how to make it more soul-loving. So you want to first examine the space. And how does soul-loving translate into this space? What does this room mean to you? What is the primary purpose of it? What must you have in order to honor your soul in this space, or not have to honor your soul? Then you want to evaluate. Give an honest assessment of kind of what's going on in the space and what needs to be done. How would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? Do you love it? Do you loathe it? Get in touch with how you feel about it. And when you think about change in this particular space, what comes to mind first? What items are important to you and what can you let go of? Or what needs to be added? Do you have favorite elements? Maybe you love the high ceiling or the lighting fixtures, or maybe it has a fabulous view. What aspects do you like? And how will making this room more soul-loving impact the other areas of your life? And what do you need to be sure that this space remains pleasing to your senses and free of clutter. After that, you want to start eliminating aspects. What were the habits that created this less than ideal space to begin with? And any belongings that you no longer love or need? What do you do to contribute to making this a less than ideal space? Are you a repository for other people's belongings? Do you let the mail pile up? Do you hoard paper and information, convincing yourself you'll need it again someday? Do you have all the organizational tools you need? Bins, file cabinets, hanging folders, whatever that might be for you. And then lastly, and this is the really fun part, you want to enhance. So let your vision of beauty guide this process. What does beauty mean to you in this space? What inspires you to fall in love with your home or your office or your classroom, whatever space you're looking at? Do you like things simple and open with lots of sunlight or lots of artwork, photo, and bright colors around? If you have open shelves and things look kind of messy, is there a way to add doors or a curtain of some sort just to kind of quiet the space? And I would encourage you to take a look at secondhand stores, Facebook Marketplace, different things, places that you can get some things at a discount, because why not? Also, don't underestimate the power of spray paint, some fancy knobs, and matching bins just to kind of organize and make sure things just look a little neater and quieter, and see what happens. And I'd love to see some before and after pics if you decide to do any of this. Be sure to share them with me or send them on social media. Would love to see what you're creating. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you're feeling more energized and empowered. And if you like what you heard here today, subscribe and leave a review for this podcast on your preferred platform. In honor of my birthday month and this milestone birthday, we are going to be releasing some additional bonus episodes in the off week. So we'll see you again next week for more Dr. MC content. Follow along on Facebook and Instagram at Dr. MC Self-Care and Dr. MC's Self-Care Cabaret on LinkedIn. You can also visit my website, drmcselfcare.com, for the latest updates and to sign up for the Cast Party, my e-newsletter. And if you're interested in having me present to an audience near you, email info@drmcselfcare.com. Thanks again, stay well, and do good.